Tom.
Hello.
Thank you very much for agreeing to talk to us.
Pleasure.
So, can you describe the work you're doing here in Guimarães?
Okay, yes, I'm the program manager for the city, the cidade program. The basic essence is that there are different program directors across European capital of culture, music and art and architecture, and I have this one called the city, which is really just about exploring what is possible in this city. So we're looking at the economy, the community, the role of culture and creativity in city making. And so my job is to frame a program that asks questions about how this city is changing and what it can become by building on its history, its legacy, but how can it become something different in the future? In that context, obviously, Guimarães is a very old city with a strong textile industry historically, a strong cutlery industry, quite a young city in terms of its population, but an old memory. And it's a small city. So we've been trying to find ways of working in that context that can hopefully develop a more vibrant economy and a more sustainable, open cultural sector.
Okay, that's great. And Charles Ledbetter, he spoke this morning here, and he mentions empathy in systems. And where does Guimarães sit on that? Is it more of a systems city, or do you see more empathy here?
I think there's a lot of empathy here. I think there are systems very much around the culture, and there's a very kind of warm, but quite some ways quite closed kind of empathy, where people are very proud to be Guimarães. There's a very strong sense of identity, which is why you get this warmth and this friendliness. But actually, in some ways, it's hard to become in that culture. I think it's a challenge of a lot of smaller cities, really, in how you turn that strength of a city that knows who it is and has a real strength of feeling. How you can turn that into something that's more open and more inclusive and more flexible. So I think the system that it has is actually a system of empathy that doesn't necessarily open up to as many people as it could do, or to as many ideas as it could do. So the whole Capital Culture Programme, I think, has been incredible in terms of creating new senses of what is possible, and perhaps mixing that empathy, but developing a system or a structure around cultural infrastructure, real programming, to kind of give people a sense that there are new ways of working in Guimarães that are true to the history of the city, whilst also doing totally different things.
Do you feel that Guimarães is more of a cultural city or creative city now than before? Can we create creative cities?
I think Guimarães has always been a strong cultural city, because it's had a strong culture, not just about the institutionalised culture, not just about the arts. It's had a strong culture. It's had a strong cultural identity. People know about Guimarães. Whether that identity is the only story to tell about Guimarães, that's the question. So I think European capital culture has introduced new stories, new identities, new types of empathy, maybe, that were missing previously. And people who have found the time to come here, to engage in things here, have realised that there isn't just a one story. It's not just a one-story city about King Alfonso and Portugal being born here and all of that kind of stuff. It's not just about the more recent 1970s and 80s textile industry. It's actually a city of increasing diversity. It's a city of quite interesting cultural organisations, lots of individual practitioners. There's a real warmth to it. All these kinds of things are starting to come through, I think. So it's not more cultural or creative than it was, but I think that perhaps some of the assets that were more underground have become overground. Some of the people who were perhaps resistant to change are more open to change. I think it's become somewhere that perhaps where the culture is more worn on its sleeve. It's more visible than it was before, maybe.
Okay, Tom, thank you very much.
Pleasure.